Welcome to the Skin and Bones podcast. This is Dr. Zachary Hill with the bone side of it, and this is Dr. Peter Gust with the skin side of it. This is episode number 4.
Yeah, number four. Yeah.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. For those of you who are new, for those of you who are following, Peter and I are old friends from medical school. Peter's now in his medical profession, fresh out of residency. I'm in my last year of residency, about to be going to my fellowship in orthopedic surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And today's episode, we're going to talk about our paths to medicine. I know we've kind of talked about things in the past, and we always say like, hey, we're going to have a podcast on this. We're going to have a podcast on this. And I think one of those today is we're going to talk about our paths to medical school. And then another podcast will be about how we selected our what we wanted to do for the rest of our lives in medical school. So I thought we'd start with that one today. And Peter, why don't you go ahead and get started and just let the world know, man.
Let's let the world know. So it's a huge topic, talking about what got me into medicine. Some people kind of stumble into it. Some people grew up in medical families their entire lives with their career plan set out in front of them, and their parents would be disappointed if they did anything else. I was very lucky to not be one of those kids. My parents definitely were very open to me exploring different career opportunities and supporting me all along the way. As far as medicine goes, in college, I didn't know what I wanted to do for the first year or so. I started off as a computer science major, and I had some interest in medicine. I did enjoy the biological sciences, but I think that you don't really know necessarily what medicine is. So it's kind of one of those things. What are your friends doing? What do you feel like interests you at the time? Because as you're growing up, as you're going through college, you're pretty absorbed into other things, whether it's sports, whether it's just like trying to talk to girls, whether it's like trying to find someone to marry, but also trying to figure out what you're going to be doing with your life. For me, I wanted something that was going to bring a stable income and something that was going to pique my interest and keep me searching every day and maintain a mindset of just kind of continuation of learning and lifelong learning from an early age. But kind of looking back on it, I don't know if I really knew what that meant in my freshman year of college. I made the decision to pursue a pre-medical path at the end of my freshman year of college, small college, Southwestern Adventist University. Got a chance to meet my wife there, Cynthia, which was awesome, and develop a lot of friendships and leadership opportunities along the way. But I don't know what it was. I did a lot of praying my freshman year, and felt impressed that medical school was the way to go. And I kind of put my head down from there and just studied as much as I could, and kind of volunteered as much as I could, worked as a scribe in the emergency room for a few years, had a lot of amazing experiences doing that, and kind of just chose one day that I wanted to become a doctor. Kind of fast forward to the whole process. We've kind of touched on bits and pieces about the whole process of getting into medical school, but the first hurdle is to take the MCAT. The MCAT's the entrance exam for medical school. Yep. And things in college and even in medical school, I would say, if you have the determination and you have the willpower to work through it, you can get good grades. You can put in the hours and you can understand the material. I don't think that medical school and even college are too much different in that aspect. I thought the MCAT was incredibly difficult. And for any of you listeners out there who are thinking about going to medical school, trying to go to medical school right now, or have just taken the MCAT, the entrance exam, or know nothing about it, it's a difficult test that had a lot of physics on it back in the day. You had to be a good writer. You had to write essays about random topics, and they would definitely critique your arguments and how well you're able to think on your feet. And I didn't do well on the MCAT the first time. And as someone who's pretty used to doing well on things and holding myself to a high standard, that was a little bit of a blow to me. Whether or not it's because I haven't gone through enough hardships in my life, and that was like in my head built up to be that huge mountain, or it was supposed to be easy, I guess, in my mind. I didn't do well on the MCAT for the first time, and that was a huge roadblock for me. I did a lot of thinking about what else I would want to do with my life, whether I wanted to take the MCAT again, where I went wrong. And basically, it turns out that I need to just switch up my learning style and do a few more questions, and ended up doing a lot better my second time around and getting accepted into Loma Linda University, where I met Zach. Got accepted to a Texas school as well, UTMB in Galveston, which would have been a whole heck of a lot cheaper at about $17,000 a year, state subsidized. So instead of $55,000 a year, whatever we paid at Loma Linda. And then but at the same time,
priceless,
yeah,
though. So
it is priceless. So that's kind of a quick rundown with me. I think that as far as my undergraduate path to getting into medical school, it was very much different than yours, and it's kind of a cool contrast because you went to a big school. I had less than 1,000 kids at my school, and so kind of thinking that we came from such different backgrounds, ending up at the same place to get our base medical training, and now we're going into complete different, like, diverse fields as well. Yeah. So you want to go ahead and let me know what you have to say about it?
Well, you brought up a couple points, right? One of the things that kind of stuck out to me, and we've talked about this before, is like, you didn't know what you want to do, and when you're in college, you're a dumb young boy, really. Like you're just trying to figure it out. A lot of people, it's their first time away from their parents, and it takes a sense of maturity, though, to be like, hey, college is meaningful. It's purposeful. I want to pursue a career out of this, something that provides for my family in the future, something that I enjoy doing, something that's a challenge. And even though we come from different backgrounds and had different ways of getting where we were, it was those characteristics that we were both kind of like solidified on, which is who we are as hardworking individuals. We're two different people, but we're both hardworking. And that's why we became such good friends. And we both have slapstick humor. I mean, like, we both go along really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I mean, it's those small blessings along the way that you kind of like shake your head about, like, at the time, but hindsight's 2020. I mean, you met your wife at Southwestern, right? You made amazing relationships at Loma Linda. You did your residency at Loma Linda, right? Who knows what would have happened if you would have went to Galveston, right? And so everything along your path was for a purpose, for sure.
Sure. Yeah. Cool. So tell me a little bit about your path. You have a lot of interesting stories.
Yeah. So it starts in high school. So I've, like you, I've never really had anyone in the medical field in my family, and period. My father was the first one to go to college from his side of the family. My mom and her sisters were the first ones to go, and my mom didn't complete college. And so college was a new experience. And in high school, I went to a public high school, and I had a teacher named Mr. Verhalen. He was my biology teacher, and he just really pushed us to learn. And it wasn't like multiple choice. It was like fill in the blank. You really tested your knowledge. And I really liked that about him. And he made learning biology fascinating. So I actually took an anatomy course my senior year, and we had to dissect minks. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. I love to dissect out. I love to do things with my hands. And it was a challenging course, and he made sure that you knew like all the origins, all the insertions, all the major vessels. And I was like, this is so cool. And then at the end of the semester, because I believe it was a semester long course, you can still look it up to this day. There was a PBS special, I believe it was in the 80s, about the 4 years of medical school. And it followed 6 people through Harvard Medical School through the 4 years and into residency. And I remember watching that, and I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to be a doctor. I want that challenge. Like, I remember seeing a guy, and he's like, he had a stopwatch, and he goes, this stopwatch is actively studying, and it was like hours on it. I'm like, I want that challenge. I want to learn that, and I want to interact with people. And so I went to college, and in going to college, grammar was never my strong suit. And I was actually recruited to play football at a couple Division I schools. I narrowed it down between Stanford and Fresno State, and Stanford didn't accept me because my SAT scores were too low. And so I went to Fresno State. played football there, and pursued pre-med. And I remember my first physics test I took, um, I got my first C, and it was like devastating because I feel like all pre-med students, it's like you got to get a 4.0, and it's like a knife to the gut when you get like a anything lower than a B.
Mhm.
And I remember that was just a devastating feeling. And I really didn't have any guidance in college. So my guidance counselor, like, what do you want to do? I was like, I want to go to medicine. There's in Division I sports, there's not a lot of student athletes. There's a lot of athlete students, but not a lot of student athletes. And they're like, well, we really don't know what to do with you. So like, here's a booklet, like figure out what you want to major in. And so again, young, dumb, right? Like I took chem. I'm like, why would I take 2 semesters of chemistry with lab when I could take one with a lab and just be done with it? Well, I didn't know that that wasn't the right chemistry for medical school. So there's an NC2A rule that says that you have to have so many credits towards your major to be eligible. So when I had to go back and take the medical school applicable chemistries, those didn't count towards my major. So I wasn't eligible. So I had to take another science on top of that every semester. So college for me was very challenging, playing a Division I sport and pursuing pre-med. But it was in that pursuit I really wanted it, and that's where I met my wife Megan. Um, and then talking about the MCATs, that was very challenging for me. I mean, I think the sciences I scored 90th or 90th percentile, 95th percentile, and then my reading comprehension and my essays were terrible. Like I'm just not good at it. I've never been good at it. I don't think it's not without trying. I mean, I took courses, the MCAT preparation courses, all those things. Nothing really helped that. And I got one interview to Loma Linda, and then I was put on the wait list. And then I actually was like, well, I'm not going to get in. So I actually went to get my post baccalaureate and got into a post baccalaureate program down in Southern California. And they accepted me that day. And so I actually took off of work that day to go and reapply to medical school. So I was like, I got up early. I was like, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go home and I'm going to prep all my stuff and I'm going to send it back out to all the medical schools. And I got a call at like 9 a.m. from, I forget what the area code is for Loma Linda, but I saw the area code and I ran outside and they called and they're like, do you still want to come to medical school?
Mhm.
And I just like broke down crying. I was so happy because I mean, it's just so much work to get to that point.
Mhm.
And then I remember it was pretty early. It was like, I don't know, it was like 8 o'clock in the morning. And Megan was younger than me. So she was still in classes, but her classes didn't start to like 10. So I drive straight to her apartment and she wakes up and she's like, scratch. She's like, huh? Like, and I'm gonna be a doctor. And her eyes just got so big. It was like, what? And she's like, I'm gonna be a doctor. And then she like spider monkeyed on me. Like, and then we went to my parents' house and told them, and they were so excited.
Nice.
And like 2 weeks before we started, got into Loma Linda, and from there on, hit the ground running.
I think it was a couple days ago I saw on Facebook that it reminded me 9 years ago today, my post from my acceptance into
That's
Loma
so
Linda.
cool.
And
That's
just
so cool.
thinking back at how, to be honest, how completely different of a person I was 9 years
Oh
ago,
yeah.
and how it really got me a little nostalgic and thinking about how much I've changed in that amount of time. I mean, you think about it, it's a long time, but it seems like yesterday.
Yeah.
It really does seem like yesterday. You brought up a good point as far as kind of you were excited for the challenge of what medical school meant and what the sciences meant. I've always wondered, like, everyone has the canned answer for medicine. I care about people. Of course we care about people. I think that is
Right.
inherent. That's inherent. You're not going to make it through if you don't. um at the same time, how many people do it, you think, for the thrill of the accomplishment, the thrill of the so-called prestige of being a doctor, whether it's an MD, whether it's a DO, whether it's just someone wanting to be the person in charge? I think back on being a naive kid in college and viewing that as being a doctor, because that's what society feeds you.
Mm.
And whether you purposefully choose that or not, I don't think we would have openly talked about it like this back then.
No.
Because we don't have the experience to go with it. You can tell the people that have done it, I don't know the numbers, but have done it solely for that reason versus continuing to get the satisfaction later on when you don't have people patting you on the back for getting an A on that patient encounter. Because I mean, I work in an office right now. I don't really get external validation. I get personal validation for doing a good job for each patient. And that's what I go home and be able to sleep well at night with. But I don't know if it just kind of makes me think like what my thoughts would be 9 years ago when I got into medical school. What was I happy about? Was I happy because I could prove that I could be the best of the best and like learn all this knowledge and help people to the best of my abilities? But in a way, we're naive. Like you said, we're kids at that time. We don't know what's in front of us, but we're trying to make the right steps and we're motivated by various things.
Yeah. And if you're one of those people who like gets something from people telling you, hey, good job, you're amazing, you're awesome, you're going to get to medical school and you're going to be surrounded by a lot of smart people. Like, I am not that smart, and everyone, and you're going to shake your head and be like, oh, you are, Zach. Like, compared to some of the people who I've met, they are by far and away way more intelligent than me. It's just I work extremely hard and I put in a lot of time. And I think if you have the motivation where it's like, oh, whatever it might be, your parents saying, oh, my son is going to be a doctor, or, oh, my son's a 4.0, or my daughter's a 4.0 valedictorian, going to Harvard, all these things. And if that's what motivates you, you're going to be slammed when you get into medical school. And then when you get into your profession, because guess what? It's expected that you're right. It's expected that you know what you're doing. And when you get into residency, if you don't know how to compete with yourself to be better every day and like get a satisfaction out of that, no one's going to tell you good job a lot. It's going to come very, very, very few times. Dude, I'm on call and I'm getting a call right now.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah, I gotta go.
You gotta bounce.
Yeah. This is like my 4th week in a row I've been on call and I've had to go in.
Really?
Yeah.
You got this.
Well, Skin and Bone Podcast. Here's the fun part about being a physician on call. My junior resident just called me right now, and I got to go into the hospital to do an emergent case. Traumas don't care when you want to sleep. Traumas don't care when you have a life or when dinner's about to be ready. You just got to go. So,
yes,
Peter, we'll do this another time. It was good talk, but we'll finish it up another time.
Yeah, we'll piece it together. No problem. All right, man.
All right, man. See ya.
See ya.